homesteading to prepping to common horse sense, we are College Hill Farm. Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as a weed eater. All right, weed eaters are relatively new. They came out around in about, I think they were invented about 1974. And then, I don't think I saw my first one. I was probably 18 years old. A senior in high school by the time I saw my first weed eater. So, we didn't do that. There was always large amounts of weeds around the property. Of course, we had our property there in Everett's, and my grandfather had his property. And of the two properties, Paul's was a lot bigger. We had just a half an acre, and he had 5 acres. So he had to maintain that property with manual means. In other words, he had a push mower that he had a little bit of yard, but the amount of yard that he had was nothing. Most of his property was used for gardening. He raised corn to feed chickens and other livestock, and he raised vegetable gardens to feed his family and to feed his hogs. So, of that, there were places on the property that were solid weeds, and he would cut them all down every fall. Okay? He would wait till fall and cut them down. We had a path out to the chicken house that was 3 or 4 feet wide that he kept cleared out, and us teenagers helped him keep it cleared out. It's about 100 feet from his house to this chicken house. And then around the chicken house, except for where he went in and out, it was all growed up. Around the tractor shed, except where you go in and out, it was all growed up in weeds. That's just the way it was. We didn't have spray. They didn't have glyphosate probably until the 90s, 80s or 90s. So we weren't raised doing that. That's just something that we weren't raised doing. We did, Paul did use a granular herbicide on his corn, but that was only in the later years. So he used a granular herbicide on his corn, but to maintain his garden and all that, everything was done manually. Now we had a Farmall 140 tractor. It had a 4-foot bush hog on it, and if you didn't bush hog it or you didn't clear it manually, it grew up in weeds. That's just the way it was, because you just couldn't maintain that. Well, I've got 9 acres here, and I decided to do a year without a weed eater or spray. And how did it turn out? Well, not too good. It put me way behind. But I'd like to take a little bit of time today to show you some of those manual things that we used to keep the areas clean and how to maintain them. Not the areas, but the tools. Now, a good weed eater is going to cost you around $100. But these things will cost you $4 or $5 a piece. You can find them at the flea markets. Not many places sell them anymore. I've seen a few. I've seen 1 or 2 at Tractor Supply, but you can find them at flea markets and things like that all the time, and they're handy as the button on a shirt. The first one that we've talked about over and over and over is a good sharp hoe. A hoe is a thing of wonder. You could take weeds as big around as your finger and a hoe just slices right through them, just whack and gone and out of the way. The only problem with a hoe is that it only cuts as wide as your hand. Okay? It only cuts as wide as the hoe. So it takes a while sometimes to cut down weeds with a hoe. But if you've got big weeds, the hoe's your tool. Next is a sling blade. This is a sling blade. Okay? It's designed to be swung and cut weeds down. And it's designed to be done one-handed. Okay? It's light. It's easy to handle. You don't worry about balance and all that. It's going to be heavy on the end because it's got a blade on it. And this blade, over time, will bow. Well, that's okay. It doesn't hurt a thing for it to bow. Sometimes I try and straighten them out, but most of the time, this is pretty springy stuff. It's about like spring steel. It holds a really good edge. Let me show you the edge. Okay, here's my edge. Now, it's basically flat on this side. This is all corrugated like. Okay, can you see that? It's kind of corrugated, but it's actually flat on this side, and this is the side you sharpen. You can sharpen it with a file, a grinder, whatever. You know, it's real cheap to sharpen it with a file. I use my grinder on it about once a year, and it's time for me to do that. I'm not going to show that on camera, but I'm going to go in and sharpen it, and I'll show you the difference. Now, you've seen me use the grinder on a hoe, so it's got these corrugations, and that lets when the grass is cut or weeds or whatever you're cutting, instead of sticking to this, especially in the mornings like this morning when it's wet, the grass will just stick to things. If you try and cut it, these corrugations keep them from sticking and it just flies off. So let's look at another version of this. Here's another version of a sling blade. But this one, of course that one, is just like this one, has the corrugations on both sides. But again, on this flat part is where you sharpen. But now this sling blade is a lot heavier. It's got a wooden handle. If you can find one of these are awesome little tools. Most of the time, the bolts on them are loose like that, but you can't turn them because they're rusty. It'll be okay. It won't matter. They're fastened on up here with bolts. Alright, and I've got one that's all welded together. I've welded them 2 or 3 times right in this area. If they break, let's see, get that where you can see it. They break right in that area. So, I'm going to get in here and sharpen these because it's that time of year they need to be sharpened. They're still pretty sharp, but I want you to see what a good sharp one can do. And like I said, I only sharpen them about once a year. So I'm going to go in here and sharpen this. Again, I just sharpen them from on this side. And you'll notice this one is a little bit bowed where it's been used. I've used this sling blade since I was a kid. This was Dad's and Mom's. Okay, I've used this ever since I was a child. Okay, it took me just a minute to maintain the edge. See that? You can see where I hit it with the grinder. Both sides. That way. That's a nice, sharp. You know, you don't grind it on this side. On this side. It's always just on one side. Now, you can see as I've used these for years. This one I have in my hand right now is probably about 30 years old. I've used it all that time. I bought it new. So before, if you measured straight across from here to here, this blade would have been straight even with the tip here and the tip here. Over the years, as I've ground it, it's meandered back. Same way on this side. This sling blade, I sharpened it this morning. I just got done sharpening it too, and it's good and sharp. And that's the only sharpening it'll get this year. That's all it'll need. This steel is real dull resistant, and I don't go whanging it in the dirt, and I don't go whanging it on trees and bushes and things that are just too big for it. Now, of the two, you can see that one is way heavier duty than the other. Okay? This one is just way more heavy duty than this one. This blade is about 2 inches wide. Over the years it's been sharpened over and over. It will cut much bigger stuff. I'll take you over here. I've got a couple of weeds, not a bunch over here, but I've got weeds everywhere. Okay, there's an abundance of weeds here at College Hill Farm, and you can go back and look. We did a sprayer video, and I've got to get caught up. I couldn't manage this the way I wanted to manage it without a weed eater and spray. So, but this is an alternative that you can use. Okay, I've got here's some horse weeds. I'll show you the difference between the two. Here's the light one. See, it didn't really cut through that. It did there once I had it down. I had to do 2 strikes with that. This is made for cutting little stuff. Okay, it's not made for cutting this great big old horse weeds. That's where this one comes in. Okay? It gets rid of that stuff in short order, one-handed. Now let's go see what the best that this is for. Okay, this is what this sling blade, this one, is meant to do. Now, you can actually sling this for a long time without getting wore out. You can use one hand for a little while and use the other hand. It's real comfortable to use. And it's just perfect for somebody between the height of 4'10" and 6 foot. Oh, it's real comfortable. On the hand, you can do it standing straight up so it don't kill your back. So I'm going to get over here and show you what this does. Faster than I can get my weed eater out and get the gas in it and get started. Okay, that is how you get started using a sling blade. It's how you maintain them. You can sharpen them with a file or with a grinder, just on one side. These will last you a lifetime. This one, I had it probably a couple of years, and the handle came off. These wooden handles, they start to shrink, and the handle came off, but I just put some epoxy down in there and shoved this back down in, and it's not moved in 15 years. So they're easy to maintain. If they start to rust, you can clean them off a little bit and put a little spray paint on them, and they're good as new. They last forever. This one, it's never had any paint on it. It didn't have paint on it when it started. I don't know what this is made out of. It's not zinc. It's steel of some kind, but it will rust, and it just never rust through, hardly. I have broke them. Again, I've welded them here at these seams. This is a spring steel. It holds an edge well. It'll last you a lifetime. This, I guess, it may have been Granny's, may have been Mom's. It's probably at least 50 years old, if it's not 70 or 80 years old, okay? I've been using it that long. So, that's how you use and maintain a sling blade. Now, have I done anything to this handle? No, the truth is, when you're using this a lot, you sweat. And the sweat on your hands is like grease, especially for a fat guy like me, it's kind of like lard. And it lubes this handle up, so you don't have to do nothing to it. My dad liked to take these kind of handles and put some motor oil on them and rub it on them and let them dry. I hate that. I hate it because in the spring when you pick it up, it feels sticky. That's not me. I don't like that. So I don't do it that way. But that's how you use and maintain a sling blade. Okay, now if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff all the time. Now if you come to the channel, you hit the little bell, it'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload on Sundays. Now, with that being said, it's time for me to get on to the next thing. And I've still got some more weeds to cut.